Hi and welcome back to the studio. Today I'm bringing you something a little different. I'm going to set up my 2023 reading journal and bring you along. I am using a Leuchttrum 1917 in this color. And I have used this book before. I took my thesis notes in one just like it, and actually this one was the lined paper on the inside, and then I have used one of the dotted ones. I have kept a bullet journal before. It was just for 1 year, and so if you don't know what that is, I'm sure you do, but just in case, it was just a planner for me, but it allowed me to dive a little bit deeper into whatever I wanted to, because you have endless pages to design how you want. They're all just dotted, and so you can see I tracked my mood one summer, which is really interesting looking back at that. And then you have the the weekly, just your every single day tasks or appointments or whatever that you're recording. So I'm well acquainted with this brand, and this size is perfect. And this is the one I chose for my book journal this year. I have kept a book journal before, and I'm going to show you those right now. So these are the book journals I have kept in the past. They were gifts often. I believe this was a gift from a friend that has a log of most of what I read. I probably forgot some. I kept this for 2 years. It was a little smaller, so didn't fit as many things in there, but you can see it is, predetermined amount of space for everything you read. Some have lists in the back. This had whole sections of books recommended or books I'm loaning to people. And if you don't do a lot of that, then it's just wasted space in your journal. This was just clearly a blank notebook that I turned into a book journal. And it was kept in 2014 all the way to 2015. So I clearly read a lot more around this time, and it's because I was a children's librarian in a school. Since 2014, I have not kept a book journal, but we're back. And what prompted this is that I made a Goodreads reading goal. I don't really care how much I read, but I made a prediction more than anything else, just because I have reading friends and I was curious. So I put down that I would read 24 books in 2022. And I think this was a pretty good guess, because the year before I was kind of averaging 1 to 2 books a month. But instead, somehow, I read 43 books in 2022. Some of them were middle grade, like a bit shorter, or maybe like novellas, shorter audiobooks that lasted 3 to 4 hours. But it was still considerably more than I was expecting to read. And when you start upping the amount you're reading, that's when you start forgetting and getting all sorts of books mixed up. And so I think that doing this will help me just sharpen my memory. It will help me gain more from what I've read, and it will help me be able to recommend books to people a little bit better. And it's just fun. So it's kind of neat to tailor it exactly to what you feel like tracking. So I have some stickers on here. One was a freebie, and I'm going to add more as I get them. And basically, let me take this bookmark out. This book has 2 different ribbon bookmarks, which will be helpful, so that I can keep one. I'll probably keep one ribbon bookmark on my daily reading tracker, because I'll open that daily and just color in the little spot. And then I will probably keep my other bookmark wherever I'm in my reviews. So at the latest review that I still have to fill out, or whatever the next page is going to be. Well, I hope that interests you. It's a bit different than what I normally do on this channel, which is art, painting, drawing, but I was going to do it anyway. And so I thought I would just bring you along. And I also am interested in sharing more diversely some of the things that I make. It's the reason this channel isn't called Jessie Doddington Art, because I'm a creator in a lot of different ways. One of those is journaling. I've always kept rich journals, And another way is my art, obviously, my sketchbooks and my paintings. And then you may not know this about me, but I also work with fiber. So I'm a knitter, crocheter, knitting designer. I haven't done that in years, but I do have designs out there. And a spinner of fiber. So I spin fiber into yarn. And I've sewn, I've made some quilts. I'm not much of a sewer, but I do have a machine and I know how to do it. It's not what I go to, but I have a great appreciation of all things crafty. So I might show a bit more of that on the channel. If it interests you, you can always pop a little note into the comments below and let me know if you too are a crafter. If this isn't your thing, no worries. Just check back next week for another art video. All right, let's dive into setting this up. So first things first, I decided I would glue in this wood textured paper to the front, kind of like an end paper, and I made this collage on the inside. This book that I'm using, I can link it down below. It's meant for ripping stuff out of and collaging things. But basically it's just a title page, nothing fancy. And you'll see me flip to the front cover a couple times and just play with the stickers that I want to decorate with, but this is all purely aesthetic. And the very next thing I do is start organizing with sticky notes, like what page I'm gonna use, like what I'm gonna do on each page. And this is my daily tracker. There's no real super important reason to track if you read every day. I'm almost certain I do, but I thought it might motivate me to read my nonfiction at least 10 to 20 minutes every day, because I do have goals this year about reading nonfiction. And so I have a little way to mark whether or not I read nonfiction that day. So this is every day of every month of the year. I am using a Sharpie S gel. It is waterproof so that later when I use marker or highlighter to color in each box, it's not going to smear. It is waterproof, but you have to make sure that it dries first before you start coloring over it or highlighting. I've got a sticker sheet down here just to keep my hand from smudging it because it needs to fully dry. And it did smear in a couple places. You can see the little blobs, but not that badly. For all my brush lettering, the titles and whatnot, I'm using my Pentel sign pen in various colors. I love the gray one, that's my favorite. And I'm throwing some stickers on there that I got from an Etsy shop, which I can link down below. Now I'm using, super technical, I'm using the little color printout of the covers to do my measuring on the page rather than using a ruler because I'm lazy. And I'm using my nice little paper cutter to cut all those off. I just printed them on my HP color printer, made them all the same size. I Googled that and just watched a YouTube video on what the most efficient way was to make all of these sizes the same. I talk about this later, but these are my book of the month spreads. So every single year that I am in book of the month, I'm recording what books I chose and whether or not I read them yet, and whether or not I got a bonus one that month. And I will also have a link to book of the month below, and you can get your first book for $5 with my link. It's something they offer anybody who's part of book of the month. So that's my 2022 one right there. It's the year that I got the most books from book of the month. And out of 14, I've only read 7. Eee, gotta get reading. So I'm using a lot of gray marker. I'm trying to keep it fairly simple. Some plants. I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's minimalist, but it's leaning towards minimalism. There is a lot of decoration in terms of stickers and stuff. This spread is going to be all the books I've read each month. So I'm going to draw a little note or fake little note with fake tape there for all 12 months. I'm going to do this in my permanent pen, and then I'm going to add some shadows with a light gray marker, which I think has a pretty cool effect. And I'm going to use my gold sign pen. It's not really glittery, but it's a gold color to do those titles. This is my collage page. This is just a page, very fancy. This is where I do not go minimalist. And this is where I'm just gonna record. I'm gonna color in, draw in all of the books I've read this year. And I'll probably draw in their titles too. I used pencil for the sketching of the books part because I wanted to actually count and make sure I didn't overdo it and have, you know, 150 books on these bookshelves when I'm only planning on reading 40. So I did just slightly over 40, I believe. I did it in pencil first and then dove in with a different permanent pen. This is my Pigma graphic or Pigma archival ink pen. So that also, once it dries, will be super waterproof and I can color in all the book spines. I used a Posca paint pen here in white paint. I had to go over it a couple times to get the title in over top of the quote-unquote wallpaper. And then this is my spread for trying to motivate myself to read one nonfiction book a month. But basically I labeled my book stack. There's 12 books sitting there, and if I go over that, awesome. But that should be a good motivator for me to keep up the nonfiction reading. Please excuse this blurry shot, it only lasts a second. These are my TBR pages, so just simple lists of books I want to read, the title, the author, and then on the right-hand side, whether I own it, I've read it, and reviewed it. And I did an every other line, light gray marker. It's just my mild liner to, I don't know, I like the look of highlighting every other line. I've seen it before and I enjoy it. You can see the titles, the first two ones I used stickers for, and then the other two I obviously didn't have any more stickers. So I just drew in those cute little ribbon titles. I also printed out tinier little book covers so that I could do a year in review. Since I didn't keep a journal, a reading journal in 2022, this is gonna be my way of recording what I did read last year so I can remember it better. And I'm gonna divide it by genre here, and a tiny little review and a 5-star rating. So as you could tell, the video before of me setting it up was all a time lapse, and so I thought I would give you a bit more of a slow page through of the result. So this is the cover page, and there is room if it extends to 2024 if I don't fill it up. For me, there's no reason why I can't just continue into 2024 with this same book, but basically the front looked like this and I glued some papers in to make it look a little more interesting. It does buckle the paper a little, but not too bad. There's our index. I'll probably decorate this a bit more. And I left 2 more pages for the index because I do plan on individually listing every book that I review. Here's my daily tracker. So you can see I'm going to color in purple all of the, maybe not stick with that color, but all of the days that I read. And then any day that I also read nonfiction, I'm going to do a little cross like this because I do really want to read, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes of a self-improvement type book each day. And that might include just nonfiction research. Here I'm going to record all the books that I finished each month. I already have one done. Here's my collage that, you know, it's pretty thick. I did this on cardstock. I probably should have used just paper for that, but it's okay. It's fun and creative, and I've already colored in one book here. I don't know if I'm going to put the titles, but I probably will. And then color them in as I read them. And I might do a legend somewhere, maybe down here, put a little white down and do a legend and color code based on whether either color code by genre or color code by whether it was an audiobook, an ebook, or a regular book. You can see I made these tabs on the side. I have a tab puncher, so I just punched this shape out of this paper, glued it together so it would be closer to a cardstock thickness, and used my mini attacher. It's like a tiny staple to add some tabs. Here are my nonfiction self-improvement books. I'm going to hopefully finish one a month at least and fill them in here. Here's my Goodreads challenge. I've only guessed that I'll read 40, but who knows? And it doesn't really bother me or matter to me how much I read, because I might read gigantic books this year. And, you know, then I won't get as many books done. That's fine. Here's my TBR, my to be read list. The ORR stands for if I own it, if I have read it, and then if I have reviewed it. So I'll just check those off as I go. Got a couple pages of that. Probably could have left even more pages for this, but I'm trying to be reasonable. Here's my 2022 year in review. Don't read too closely if you're worried about spoilers, but for the most part, any real spoilers I covered up in some paper for you so that you wouldn't see. But basically I divided it into a few genre categories, even though obviously there are books that cross genres and blend genres, so I just picked whatever it stuck in my head as. So I could have put Ellen Hildebrand as romance, but I just put her in contemporary fiction because there was a lot of family drama and other stuff going on. It wasn't primarily a romance for me. Here are my thrillers. I read the most thrillers last year. Here's some spoilers I've covered up. My romance section. This is my big foray into romance reading. I haven't read a lot of romance before, but I'm enjoying it. This was the breakdown of the genres I read, and out of each genre I tried to pick a favorite. It was very challenging in some ways just because books are all so different. And I put best book of the year as The Bodyguard, even though it doesn't mean it's the most literary or the best written book. It is the one that I had the best experience with this year. So the right book at the right time equals the best reading experience. So had less to do with what I deemed the most or the best written book or the best work of art or something like that. Because the one that had the most impact on my life is probably this one in Self-Improvement, You're a Badass at Making Money. The best work of art was probably The Graveyard Book, both in its illustrations and in Neil Gaiman's crafting of a story for middle grade and even adults, I think. So this was, take it with a grain of salt. Here is my 2023. It kind of went through, so I think I'll just decorate on that page instead of using it for something because it'll bleed through. So here's the genre build up for this year, and I already have one down. And I put middle grade, but I could always change that to young adult or another genre if something else comes up. I've got some blank pages here. I thought I could try to inspire myself to read different categories. I am a mood reader, so this could be like vacation or summer reads I could collect here, my fall or spooky or dark academia reads, and my Christmas reads. That's what I did this last year. I read ones related to summer, fall, and Christmas. Spring is kind of a whatever for me. I just go to town and read whatever. Here's my review section, the start of my review section, and I'm listening to this right now and I just finished this. So we've got that started out. I cannot continue yet because I have some stickers coming from Etsy with little icons as to whether they were book, audiobook, or ebook, as well as 5-star stickers. So I can stick that down and color it in. And some may think that's just a waste of money, but for me it was a small cost to create some uniformity, and I think that will really be pleasing. I'm a visual artist, so when things are pleasing visually, I stick with them longer. Here are the back I just used for test pages to kind of see how things react on the paper. And also you can use this area to choose your palette. So I really like just using these cool pale colors. So I'll probably, stick to that a lot. My book of the month spreads ended up like this. This is my first one I did, and I didn't like the way it turned out. So I just changed the way I did it for the next month. But basically I have some stickers. These are all from this package from Michaels, the Paper Studio Agenda 52, and it was called Homebody. Basically, For the book of the month, I put in the book that I chose for each month, and I started in June. This is when I signed up. And if I got an extra book that month, I chose an extra one. I just put it in the second spot. So in June, I got this one, July, August, September, October, November. And I decided it wasn't really a great use of space. So I changed it for the next ones. Instead, I did, all the months, but I went along chronologically so that if I did an extra, I could just add it next to it on the shelf and keep going. So anywhere you see a plant or a candle or something, that's a month that I chose to skip. When you skip a book of the month, you don't pay that month, and that credit just rolls over. And you can also just pick from a massive collection of other published books. But sometimes I just don't feel like getting another book. I feel like I'm getting behind, or can't make up my mind. It's very hard for me to choose books sometimes. So this was my 2021 books that I read. In the top right corner over the logo, you can see if I've read them or not. So I read all of these except for this one, which I actually, my husband picked out to read. So it wasn't even for me in the first place, but I might read it in the future. It's apparently very, very good. My 2022, I actually chose a lot more books. I skipped 2 months, but you can see that I often got an extra. So I got an extra in May. I got a birthday one here. You get a free book on your birthday month. I got the another one here, like an extra. And then at the end of the year, I got a free choice out of their finalists for the year. You get those benefits, like the birthday one and this other one, after you've become a BFF. And I think that's after you've been with them for 12 book credits. Here's my spread for 2023. This is the book I chose for January, and we're off. Next, I just decided to make some inspiration pages. And you didn't see me create these. I just did this the other day for fun. So YouTube inspiration from people I watch talk about books on YouTube will go here. And I can include pictures or just little notes like this about who recommended what and why. Here's some TikTok book inspiration. Instagram book inspiration. And then I decided to also put down in color physically somewhere the books that I have on my Kindle, because mine's not in color and I don't really look through it very often to see what's on there. And I thought maybe if I put them visually somewhere, I would be more likely to read more on the Kindle. So I've divided them by genre-ish. So here are the thrillers I currently have on Kindle that I have not read. Crazy, right? But there's a lot, because I get free Kindle first reads from Amazon. Every month you get to pick another free book. So a lot of these come from that. And so they, I didn't purchase them, so that might be why I didn't read them yet, but I am still interested in reading several of them. Here's the fantasy ones I have on Kindle, the romance ones I have on Kindle, and you can see I have a couple that I forgot to print out that I'll add. Contemporary fiction and nonfiction. This one's really good. So that's just to try to get me to read more off my Kindle this year. And I think I will print a bunch of like Pinterest photos of people reading on their Kindles and add those throughout, just to try to get myself to read more on the Kindle. We live in an apartment. There's not a ton of space. I don't need to be collecting more books unless I'm ready to read them immediately. So that's what this looks like. I hope you enjoyed it. Thought I'd also mention this adorable, really thick cardstock bookmark that I bought on Etsy, and I will link it below. And it's my tracker, so I'm going to write all the books that I have read this year onto. This is like the simplest way, right? Rather than a whole journal, just keep a bookmark record of all the books you read. So there's just another idea for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. Thank you so much for joining me today while we set up my 2023 reading journal. I hope that was of interest. I hope you got some inspiration in case you too want to keep better track of what you read in 2023. This is a great way to just keep more organized notes. So I keep a journal anyway, and I could just write about what I read in that journal, but then I'd have to dig for those entries. So it's kind of nice to keep track of what I've read and what I've learned from what I've read in its own special little package. Until next time, bye for now.